me your way, and I will walk in it. Teach me your way, and I will walk in it. Lean in and listen to my voice.
Hi, everybody. Good to be with you again. January 31st, 2021. It always strikes me at the beginning of a new year that new year number seems hard to believe, 2021. Of course, I can remember back a lot more years than most of you can, so maybe that's why it makes such a big impression on me. Today, we're going to talk about rules and what role rules play in our life, and hopefully what we can learn from a story from the Bible today in the book of Luke, chapter 6. And there's two stories in there that we're going to look into about Jesus and how he viewed a particular rule. And it was a lot different than some other people did. So let's talk about rules in our life. What role do they play in our lives? How many rules do we have to follow? Each of you probably have rules that your parents or people you live with have set for you. So you have to sometimes decide what are the most important rules for you to follow. Sometimes you have thoughts in your head, questions, hey, do all these rules make sense? And what happens to you if you don't follow a rule? Rules are funny things. And then the last thing we'll ask you to think about is, are there ever exceptions to rules? And why are there exceptions to rules? So we'll talk a little bit more about this and get into the story involving Jesus and how he responded to people who thought he wasn't keeping a rule that he should. So let's get into today's story from the Bible. As I mentioned, it's from Luke chapter 6, verses 1 through 16, and there's two distinct parts in this story. And the story involves a group of people, first of all, who are called the Pharisees in this Bible story. Pharisees were a powerful group of people in the community who kind of set the norms. This is how we're going to do things here. Anyway, the Pharisees were obsessed about compliance with rules. And they believed that a rule is a rule, no exceptions. And in fact, the more complicated and detailed a rule was, it's almost like they liked that even better because they were very good at following rules and trapping people in the details and saying, you didn't follow this rule. So that's on the one side, we have this group of rule enforcers or the Pharisees. On the other side, we have Jesus. And the Pharisees had heard enough about and from Jesus before the story had even taken place to feel threatened by him and not like him, because Jesus was a very different person, had a very different message to people that I think the Pharisees, the rule enforcers, felt threatened their power. So they were bound and determined to do something about Jesus. So this story revolves around the fourth commandment. So if you probably remember, there are 10 commandments. The fourth one is, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. So that's kind of the simple part of the fourth, or interpretation of the fourth commandment. The more detailed one is on the slide you're looking at right now. And you can see there's a fair amount of detail about who can do what and so forth and so on. And this is exactly what the Pharisees liked. And you'll notice that the rule basically says you're not to do any work on the Sabbath. And in our modern world, the Sabbath in our religion is on Sunday. So according to this commandment, don't do any work or you're violating the holiness of the Sabbath. So Jesus is traveling with a group of followers, and they've been walking all day, and they come to a field of some sort of grain. Could have been oats, it could have been corn, whatever it was. And they were famished. They hadn't eaten all day. So as they were walking through this field that was just full of plants, they started picking a little of the grain and just so they had something to eat. And there was plenty of food in that field, so they really weren't negatively affecting anybody. But there was this group of rule enforcers, the Pharisees, that kind of followed them around. And guess what? They interpreted that as work on the Sabbath. They were picking grain, and that was work. So they pointed that out to Jesus and started pointing fingers and citing the rules and the law. And Jesus had a very interesting response to them. And while our story is from the book of Luke, a similar story in the book of Mark, and it says, Jesus said to them, the Sabbath was made to meet the needs of people, and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath. And if you can probably imagine, that did not go down well with the Pharisees, the rule enforcers. They were into technicalities, and this was work, and let's mark them down. Let's mark Jesus down as making another violation of the rules. So that's story number one. The second part of the story in the passage in Luke is about, again, a Sabbath day. Jesus is in the temple or near the temple in the town square, and he's teaching people, preaching, and he notices a man who's coming forward, and this man has what's called a withered hand. And there's a picture there of the withered hand that you can see. So Jesus looks at this man closely, but he also notices that the Pharisees are watching him. And again, it's the Sabbath, and he has done some healing before this. The Pharisees are aware of that. So again, they're mumbling among themselves, he's working on Sabbath. He's going to heal this man. And Jesus knows what's going on, and he looks right over at the group that is mumbling and grumbling about it. And he says, let me ask you something. What kind of action suits the Sabbath best? Doing good or doing evil? Helping people or leaving them helpless? Then he looked into their eyes, and the man came forward, and Jesus asked the man to stretch out his hand, which of course he wasn't able to do before this, and the man's hand was healed. He had full use of his hand. Well, this just set the rule enforcers, the Pharisees, off again. And they got together, didn't confront Jesus directly, but they got together and made their notes and marked down that here he's violated the rules. And their whole objective from that point on was to get Jesus into big trouble. And of course, that story comes later as we continue to move through the life of Jesus and into Lent and Easter season. So we're not going to talk about that today. So anyway, the story here is one of a guy, Jesus, who takes what is a rule, and he doesn't just follow it blindly. he says, what makes sense here? It makes no sense if I have the power to help people to not heal, even though it's the Sabbath, and walking through a field and picking and eating some grain is not something that's horrible. In fact, people were hungry, so we did it. And he took, in essence, a very complicated, detailed rule, like the fourth commandment, and he basically broke it down to something very similar, or very simple, I should say, which is basically the fourth commandment now means don't let productivity dominate your life. The Sabbath was made to meet the needs of people and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath. And helping other people is what we should be doing. Well, that's it for today. I have a personal God sighting to share with you, which was the snowstorm earlier this week. Some people don't like snow in wintertime. I really do. And I just thought it was nice to see the ground covered up and the earlier, dirtier snow covered up by a fresh coating. So I really enjoyed that. But for those of you who don't like winter and snowy weather that much, I guess you can take heart in the fact that we're probably a little bit more than halfway through the winter weather months. And in 6 or 7 weeks, we should start seeing bare ground again. And a little while after that, warmer weather, more sun, and the Easter season. So take care, and we're going to take you out with a song by Richard Druckfort Colligan called Teach Me Your Way. Bye-bye.
Oh, oh, teach me your way, and I will walk in it. Teach me your way, and I will walk in it. Lean in and listen to my voice. Oh my God, I've been calling to you all day long. Lean in and listen to my voice. Oh my God, I am trusting your unfailing love. Teach me your way, and I will walk in it. Teach me your way, and I will walk in it. When I'm in trouble, I will call on your grace. There is no one like you, Holy One. When I'm in trouble, I will call on your grace, your forgiving, overflowing love. Teach me your way, and I will walk in it. Teach me your way, and I will walk in it. Great is your love that won't let go, even now, as my life is hunted day by day. Great is your love that won't let go, even now, as the terror closes in, we pray.